The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
Close your eyes and pull like a dog.
And a new Irish record for Phil Healy, 22.99.
Christy Cooney hands over the Sam Maguire Cup to Graham Canty, Cork All-Ireland champions for the 7th time ever.
Hello and welcome to the Star Sport podcast. My name is Jack McCarran of the Southern Star and I'm joined by Star Sport editor Kieran McCarthy. Before we kick things off, just a gentle reminder to our listeners and viewers as always to please rate, review and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify and YouTube. The Star Sport podcast is brought to you in association with our friends at Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, where your bank really does matter. Choose the credit union, choose local, choose community. We're chatting West Cork hoops on this week's podcast, and to steer us in the right direction, we'll be joined by Pat Curran, teacher and basketball coach at Coláiste Pobail Bheanntraí. The Bantry Secondary School has enjoyed a brilliant season on the court, contesting 2 All-Ireland finals. And Pat will tell us all about it. But before all that, we're going to bring you up to speed with some of the big stories making the headlines in West Cork over the last week or so. And it didn't take long for the early season optimism around the Cork footballers to dissipate, with John Cleary's side losing at home to Colm O'Rourke's Meath in the opening round of the National League on Sunday. Joe Brolly was particularly critical of Cork's approach on Twitter, saying Cork suffer from solo running disease. Head down, solo hard, hand pass. Head down, solo hard, hand pass, repeat. Meanwhile, Meath played with freedom, kicking long and not worried if the ball was lost now and again. Colm treats them like adults, not robots. A revolutionary act. The result leaves Cork facing an uphill battle in Division 2 with games against Kildare and Dublin to follow. And Kieran, you were at Páirc Uí Chaoimh. Would you agree with Joe Brolly's assessment of how Cork played?
If you heard a loud bang on Sunday evening, that was the bubble bursting, Jack, which was unfortunate. Just a bad start for the Cork footballers. There was momentum coming off the McGrath Cup. We were all encouraged by what we saw there. 3 wins in a row. Good, solid displays. We did put it in context even in last week's podcast by saying it's only the McGrath Cup, so we couldn't read too much into it. But still, there were green shoots there, and there were reasons to be positive heading into the opener against Meath last Sunday. And for the first 50 minutes, you could say, like, Cork were leading. They were 2 points up. Cork were 2 points up also at half time and should have been more up because they were the better team in the first half, and they did control it. But just that second half display was quite poor. I think what stood out for me, I get what Joe Brody's saying there about Cork not kick passing the ball, and that was obvious. Like, Meath really trusted that their passing in the second half, and they really opened Cork up an awful lot. Whereas Cork, there was a lot of lateral hand passing again, what we're used to over the last couple of years, trying to break the lines, trying to punch through the Meath defence, but it just wasn't working. And a lot of the time we saw Brian Hurley inside in the full forward line, and he was like he just wasn't getting the ball inside there. Like, it was a frustrating day for Brian Hurley. That second half, more questions than answers, because it leaves Cork down no points obviously after the first game, and with 2 hard games to come. Away to Kildare and Newbridge this Sunday. That's going to be a tough game because Kildare pushed Dublin to a point last weekend. Then after that, it's February 19th. Dublin come down to Páirc Uí Chaoimh. That's going to be another huge game for Cork. And you have to say, we have the likely situation where Cork could have no points after 3 games. So instead of a possible promotion push, Cork could be looking over their shoulder at trying to stay out of a relegation fight. Like, that is the reality. That's why the game against Meath was so important. It was a home game and the chance to put some points on the board. And even though Cork were 2 points up, what was it, 51, 52 minutes into the game, they just, I think it was Meath outscored Cork 2-4 to 1 point in the next scoring burst. And it just ended up, because Cork a bad day at the office, it turned out.
Kieran, on Off the Balls, the football pod, co-host James O'Donoghue was speaking ahead of the Meath game, and he seemed to be quite optimistic about Cork's chances. That's Kerry's James O'Donoghue one of the best players of his generation. So he had obviously seen something from Cork's pre-season that had given him confidence that Cork could maybe make a run at Division 2. But as you mentioned, there was a strong first 50 minutes where Cork led for most of the game. But again, they fell away in the last 10 or 15. And that's something that's happened in most of the big games Cork have been involved in over the last 2 years, especially the Kerry games, where they've stayed in it and looked competitive for 50 minutes, 55 minutes. But then when it comes down to the crunch, they just can't stick in there or pull away or get the crucial points to leave them in a position of dominance going down into the final few minutes. And that was, again, the same story at Páirc Uí Chaoimh on Sunday. They looked good for large portions of the game, but when it really mattered, Meath were the team of the ascendancy.
That's exactly it. And like you said, that's almost a team over the last couple of years. But there are positives there. Like the first thing I'd like to urge Cork fans, don't have a knee-jerk reaction, because this is the first game of the league. There's a long lead there. Division 2 is quite competitive, and we all always have to remember where Cork are in the pecking order right now. They are a mid-table Division 2 team. That's realistically where they are. If we're looking at the promotion push for Division 1, I think you're probably looking at the Dublin and the Derrys. It'll be interesting to see how we get on against Clare this weekend. Like, looking at Dublin and Derry is probably the top two in this division. So for Cork to finish mid-table, it's not the worst thing in the world, because it's where they're at right now. That's Cork's level. I think what was disappointing the last day was that some of the old failings surfaced again. Like you said, kind of faded out in that last quarter. What was concerning too was Cork coughed up an awful lot of goal chances. Like the Cork full back line and the Cork defence was opened up far too easily. Even as early as the 7th minute with Shane Walsh's first goal, like he turned Kevin O'Donovan over in the sideline. He ran in almost without a hand on him and finished. Micheál Martin had to make a really good double save in the first half from Meath as well, when they got in behind that Cork full back line. If you look at the second Meath goal, which John Cleary described after as the vital goal, that's the score that pushed Meath ahead. It came from a Cork turnover. Meath struck fast, opened up Cork, finished well. But Cillian O'Sullivan's goal, he's the Meath wing forward, like that was a really bad goal to concede. He literally ran through the heart of the Cork defence with barely a hand put on him, and he finished well. But Cork were just opened up far too easily. And in fairness, John Cleary conceded that after. He said, you're not going to win any games conceding 3-14. Only Waterford in Division 4 conceded more than Cork did in the opening weekend of the National Football League. So straight away, there's something there, like Cork really need to shore up that defence. Cork scored 19 points, which would win most games. Stephen Sherlock was on fire. He got 14, 11 more from play. But we have to think too, right? Brian Hurley didn't score from play and was subbed after 60 minutes. Conor Corbett didn't feature at all, because I'm presuming that's because of his Sigerson Cup duties with DCU, so they want to manage his game load. Cathal O'Mahony came off the bench, but he also has Sigerson Cup at the moment, so they're trying to manage him as well. So add in Corbett, add in Cathal O'Mahony, get Brian Hurley back on the scoreboard with Sherlock there. Like, you have scores in that Cork attack. Chris Jones, to be fair, from Ivlera, he was a bright spot. I thought he showed up well at times. He got 2 points. But actually, one of the big talking points that's come out of this game is Sean Powter. Like in last week's podcast, Holly O'Sullivan and David Duggan said Sean is a talisman of this Cork team. He's so important. We've seen him played at centre forward in the McGrath Cup, and he was there again against Meath. But as I saw in the Examiner on Monday, is it Robin Peter to pay Paul? That's what Paddy Kelly wrote. Because are we better having Powter back in the half-back line, where he can maybe get him more on the ball and running from deep? He just didn't make that impact against Meath the last day. So a lot of questions for the Cork management to find answers for in the next couple of weeks. And all of a sudden, this game against Kildare on Sunday is a pretty big game. You'd hope that Cork can get something out of it. If they do, all of a sudden the mood music changes again. If they don't, we're going to head into the Dublin game with no points on the board. So it's another big game for Cork. And I think what's going to be interesting here now is the Cork response. They've had a setback, the first loss of the season, and it's how these players respond from this loss. So hopefully we will see a Cork reaction, and hopefully we'll have a more positive Cork result to chat about next week.
Here, just to finish on this segment, a quick report card for some of the West Cork players involved on Sunday. Obviously, we saw the return of Rory Dean of Bantry Blues. He got 5 minutes off the bench. Brian O'Driscoll from Tig McCorrick was in from the start, which was great to see. We've obviously been calling for his inclusion for the last number of seasons, so to see him back involved, despite the fact that they lost, it was nice to see him in action. Maurice Shanley of Clonakilty was there. Rory Maguire from Castlehaven. Am I missing anyone? Obviously, you mentioned Brian Hurley and John O'Rourke from Carbery Rangers. Also saw some game time. So did anyone stand out as being particularly impressive from the West Cork contingent? And were you happy to see Rory Dean's return and also Brian O'Driscoll's involvement?
Like I said, it was a frustrating afternoon for Brian Hurley. He just wasn't getting the ball. He was. You could see inside in both halves. Like, he was well marked by Meath, but the ball just wasn't coming in fast enough from Cork. Like, for someone like Brian Hurley, he's depending on the ball coming in. Like, he'd thrive off quick, fast ball inside. For Cork, like you said earlier, and Joe Bradley touched it in his tweet, there was a lot of solo running. They were trying to punch holes in that Meath defence. They were trying to carry the ball instead of kick passing, and that actually stood out to me very early in the game. We touched on it in the McGrath Cup final. Brian O'Driscoll's kick passing against Limerick was one of the features of the game. He was picking out the Cork forwards with these really 30, 40, 50-yard passes, really incisive angled delivered passes. Didn't see one. I can't recall one pass from Brian O'Driscoll off his foot into the Cork attack. That's obviously a tactic that Cork were doing, because there was a lot of holding onto the ball and they were waiting and they were being patient and so on. And I get that to an extent. But when you have the likes of Brian Hurley inside there not getting the ball, like, surely something has to change. So, like you said there, John O'Rourke and Rory Dean came off the bench in the second half. Didn't really impact the game, to be quite honest, because Meath were on top in that final quarter, and it was all Meath doing the running there because they were just totally in charge. Like, as they grew into the game, Cork faded. Maurice Shanley was in the Cork full back line. He kicked a point in the first half. So we had a fair few West Cork lads there, but it's nothing really to write home about. I'll be quite honest. We're going to expect more in the next couple of weeks. But like I said earlier, it's just the first game of the league. Look across the whole league, like Kerry losing up in Donegal, Tyrone lost. You've had big teams losing their opening games, so it's not really time to press the panic button. I think what happens here in Cork is that over the last couple of years, we're just so used to these false dawns. As soon as there's some bit of a hiccup, there's a bit of a pile-on, and there shouldn't be. We cannot judge this John Cleary team till midway through the league. We have to be fair to him, be fair to the players, be fair to the management team that he's put in there. It's a new setup. It's going to take time. There's going to be ups and downs this season, but we got to be realistic where Cork are at in the pecking order. They're not going to win an All-Ireland this year. Realistically, they're probably not going to win a Munster title when you look at how good Kerry are. If a mid-table Division 2 finish would be acceptable, it really would. Because we got to think too that there's the Taunton Cup hanging in the background this year as well. The Taunton Cup obviously is that secondary All-Ireland competition, and it's now linked with the league. So I think it was Hawley O'Sullivan in a Southern Star column, or did he say in the podcast, that if Cork can win more games than they lose in 2023, that would be a good year. So hopefully a lot of games to be played and a lot of football to be played.
Okay, well, they get a chance to redeem themselves this Sunday when they travel to Newbridge at 2 p.m. to take on Kildare in round 2 of the league. Sticking with GAA for now, and Pádraig Griffin's impact and legacy on Clonakilty GAA was celebrated at a memorial tournament last Saturday. The 2-time Cork Senior Football Championship winner Wicklow passed away tragically last October, and the current Clonakilty senior team organised an in-house tournament to honour the club legend last weekend, Kieran.
This is a really nice idea and a really fitting tribute to Pádraig Griffin. He's remembered as one of Clon's finest players of the last couple of decades. He's a 2-time Cork Senior Football Championship winner. He was a Clon footballer that thrilled the home supporters, and he tormented opposition defences right across the county. So the background to this is that the senior players in the Clonakilty senior football team, led by new club captain Mark White, they went to the new Clan senior manager Martin O'Brien with this idea because they wanted to remember Pádraig Griffin, and they wanted to, I suppose, pay tribute to the man who did so much for Clonakilty football over the years. So they decided to run an in-house tournament that was held in Ahmilla last Saturday. So there was 4 teams. It was run in a blitz format. 4 teams made up of 60 players. And the senior players in Clon wanted the under-17 players in Clon involved in this too, which was a really nice touch as well. And what I thought was another really nice touch is that, and one of the under-17 players was presented with the Padraig Griffin Rising Star Award from the Blitz on Saturday. So everything went off really, really well. I was talking to Martin O'Brien about this for Thursday Southern Star. He thinks there was 200 to 300 people in Ahamilla on Saturday, and that's not including the players. So that's a huge turnout. So we had 4 teams, Team A, B, C, and D. The captains were Mark White, Sean White, David Lowney, and Joe Grimes. So they played off in a Blitz tournament. I'm not going to reveal here who won the Blitz. You'll have to check out Thursday Southern Star because we have pictures of all the teams that took part and a write-up from it as well. But just to say, it was a really fitting tribute. And Martin O'Brien was telling me that Padraig's brother actually spoke to the players in the dressing room on Saturday. That's Mark Griffin. And Martin said it was really emotional and it was really insightful and really strong and really powerful because Mark Griffin gave an insight into Padraig, what made him tick, his commitment to training, his dedication to football, his love for Clan, and that really made an impression on the players. So brilliant idea from the Clan senior footballers, and great to hear that it went off so well. And you can see Thursday Southern Star for a full write-up and pictures from the event.
Yeah, lovely stuff, Kieran. Finally then, the Beamish Cup is back this weekend, and one tie in particular that really catches the eye is a derby with a difference. It's Drina A against Drina B.
Oh, this is the beauty of the cup, isn't it? To have a West Cork derby like this, to have the Drina Rangers A team take on the Drina B team this Sunday. No team has home advantage. You'll have to say no team has home advantage because they're obviously both Drina teams, but it's one of 4 Beamish Cup ties that's on this weekend. So it's going to be quite a busy weekend on the West Cork League. And I'm just going to put up the fixtures here when I'm talking. So as well as Drina Rangers A versus B, which is a round 1 tie at 2 p.m. on Sunday, we also have 2 more round 1 ties. Mizenhobb B against Bantry United. We've Courtney Sherry against Dunmanway Town. And then in the preliminary round on Sunday, we've Clonakilty Soccer Club against Bunratty United. So, as we know, Jack, the Beamish Cup, it's the big cup here in West Cork. It's the FA Cup of the West Cork League. And just like the FA Cup there's a lot of love about the FA Cup across the water right now. There's always been a lot of love about the Beamish Cup here. We never had a situation where, like for Man United, kind of left the FA Cup 25 years ago and threw it into disarray. The Beamish Cup has always been front and foremost here in West Cork, and that's great to see. And we will have new champions crowned this year. Lyre Rovers, they bowed out, or they were knocked out in the open round. So the cup is up for grabs. And the big heavy hitters are there, like we mentioned there, Clonakilty Soccer Club. The bridesmaids of this competition over the last couple of years, they've lost too many finals in a row that they'd like me to mention. Drina Rangers, who are top of the Premier League right now, and have Barry O'Driscoll Hawthorne in top form. 17 goals for the season, Jack. 17 goals so far. 15 in the league, 2 in the cup. He's a man on form. He's probably been the top striker in the West Cork League over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years. So he's a man that in form. And now Barry, the Drina Rangers A striker, has the B team in his sights. But the cup is full of shocks. Look at last weekend. Look at Brighton did to the mighty Liverpool in the FA Cup. So who knows? We could have the shock of the round for the Drina Rangers B team, dumped the A team out. Wouldn't that be some story for next week's podcast? So yeah, big weekend for the Beamish Cup. We had our fill of the FA Cup last weekend, but it's time for the Beamish Cup to take centre stage, and hopefully we'll get shocks.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's all we have time for in part 1. But coming up in part 2, we're chatting basketball with Pat Curran.
The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
One sport we haven't spoken about a lot on the podcast is basketball, and one school in West Cork in particular has been making waves on the court. Coláiste Pobail Bheanntraí competed in 2 All-Ireland basketball finals this year alone, and their coach, Pat Curran, is going to join us in a moment. But Kieran, maybe just give us the context as to what these finals were and how big a deal they were for the school.
Coláiste Pobail Bheanntraí even has made fantastic inroads into basketball in the last 10, 11 years. It's really put West Cork schools basketball on the map. So I think it's 5 or 6, actually 6 All-Ireland schools finals they've been in since 2017. So recently in the national basketball arena in Tala, the under 16 boys and the under 19 boys were both in B finals. Unfortunately, it wasn't to be their day. Both teams lost. But still, for the Bantry school to have 2 teams in All-Ireland finals on the same day, it's an incredible feat and a testament to the great work that's been done in the school at the moment when it comes to basketball. But not just basketball, Coláiste Pobail Bheanntraí is doing superb work in all sports at the moment. They're really making an impression on the rugby field as well with their boys teams in the Munster Schools Senior and Junior Cup, while the girls team will actually be playing Bantry in the Munster Schools Junior Cup, a huge derby in the next couple of weeks. So it's a school that's it gives a really, really good sporting opportunity to the students, and it's just great to see. So what we did, we caught up with Pat Curran. He's been involved in Bantry basketball for the last number of years, and he's done great work with the school. So this was the ideal chance just to chat with Pat, just to fill us in on basketball in the school, how things are going, what the future is, and even just to get a taste for basketball in general in the Bantry region where the sport is quite strong. But when I started this chat with Pat, I wanted to find out a bit more about him and why he got into basketball in the first place and what he loves about this sport so much. A couple of years ago, Pat joined us for the West Cork Minute. It was back in 2018. And this will just give you a taster of Pat Curran when it comes to basketball. These are some of the questions we asked you, Pat. It's going to bring back some memories. We said, what do you think about when you're alone in the car? You answered basketball. What's the one thing you can't live without? Basketball. What do cats dream of? You said basketball. And we had one odd question in there. Well, one of many odd questions. What would you do if you found a penguin in your freezer and you told us you teach him how to play basketball? So we can garner from that, Pat, that you like your basketball. So talk us through how this love affair started in the first place.
Just before that, Kieran, just could I just send my sympathies to the Blount family on the passing of Garrett today. The Blount family are a really big Cork basketball family, and Gary, the dad, and Garrett, his son, have now passed sadly, but Garrett passed this morning. And, he's a very young man, and he, I'm sure I speak for everybody in Bantry Basketball Club as well as the school in just sending our sympathies to the Blounts this morning. And to answer your question, how did the love affair of basketball start? I played basketball right up to under 18 with Christy O'Neill in Bantry. I kind of got sidetracked with soccer then for about a decade. Involved with Cork City, ended up there for a while, and I was kind of kept interested in basketball, but didn't coach much. And then when we amalgamated schools here in 2011, I was after getting involved in the club locally here, and it was great that we had a new hall, and we started off with an under 16 team here in the school. Christy O'Neill would have given me a bit of help with that as well at the time. There was another couple of teachers involved, Jamie Gahan, who's gone on to Dublin since. It was, I always say to the kids here when I'm teaching geography about immigrants and stuff, that it was actually a bunch of Lithuanian kids got the school basketball going. They came to me and said, look, you're coaching the club, would you mind putting in a school team? So we did, and they were the guys that started things off, and it's come from, I think, having an under 16 team in our first year to having 16 teams currently. So it's a bug when you get stuck in it, and if you're around good people that are around, that are involved in basketball, it becomes, part of your life, like any other sport, I suppose. It's a hot topic in my house every day of the week. That's kind of how I got stuck in it.
As a player who played the game so growing up, now you're on the other side.
I just have to tell you there now, I was no good at it.
Modest as always, Pat. But even now to be on the other side coaching, like how much satisfaction do you get from coaching? How much do you enjoy it?
I love it. So like the biggest satisfaction for me as a coach is seeing kids that you coached, or the adults that you coach as kids, still playing the game. I love coaching the B teams, to be honest, because you can see progress really quickly with them. like the new first year teams now that we have this year, they're going to September, but they only actually played their first games this week. One of them just played a while ago, just before I came on to you. And just like our top graded team in first year would be all club players who are coached by Fergal Conlon here in the club under 14. But the next grade down would be a lot of guys that never played before until they came into the school. And there's great satisfaction in that, just seeing a quick improvement, you know, even from learning the rules to the footwork, to see a fella get his first ever basket, you know, that's the satisfaction. And really, obviously, winning is nice now and again too, but that's not what keeps me involved really. It's you know, seeing players develop and then seeing good players develop and go on to bigger things. You know, we've a few guys here in the school who have been on academies, and girls who've been on the Munster Academy, and a couple of guys that got to the last 28 of the Irish under-16s this year. Unfortunately, didn't make the last 15, but they got a few nice trips, weekends training out of it, and they enjoyed it, and it's pushed them on.
It's brilliant to see the growth in Bantry basketball, especially in the school as well. Like you said, there are 16 teams now across the school. Like, that's incredible. And that just highlights how far basketball has come in the school and almost put down roots and become part of the sporting culture in Coláiste Pobail Bheanntraí.
It is, and we have a big sporting culture. Like, we're open to everything here in the school. Anything kids want to play, we try our best to provide it for them, providing there's a teacher available to do it. So we've got 5 or 6 teachers now involved in the basketball, which is fantastic. So you can put in B teams and you can get more kids involved. And you know, it's just great. And we have a wheelchair team. We came second in the regionals a couple of months ago, and there's 2 more tournaments now we're entering in March, which is great because we have one of the Rebel Wheelers, Oisin O'Connor, here as a student in the school, and to see him playing, it's incredible. Like, because obviously you have able-bodied kids sitting into wheelchairs to be part of that team, to make up the team for him as well, and they're nowhere near as good as him. Like, it's the same ball, but it's a completely different sport, and the technique that he has is incredible, and the way he moves up and down the court. And you know, they can't get the ball off him. So we're actually in the process as well of trying to get chairs for the school. So Fergal Conlon from West Cork Development has found some money for us. Our goal is to get 10 chairs so we can train here in the school and bring our own chairs to games. So if there's anyone out there that would like to, you know, it's a good time to ask for a bit of sponsorship, I suppose, when you're asked onto a podcast. If there's anyone out there that has any spare cash and would like to buy a chair for us, we'd be more than willing to take it on.
That's fantastic. If anyone listening to this podcast does want to get in touch with Pat, you can find him on social media, or just get in touch with us in the podcast, and we'll put you in touch with Pat. Want to talk to a couple of weeks back, there are 2 teams from the school who are in All-Ireland finals, which is an incredible achievement. Under 19B's All-Ireland schools final and the under 16B boys schools final. Unfortunately, the results of the day didn't go Bantry's way, but what a fantastic achievement, Pat. That's 5 or 6 teams in the last couple of years from the school have got to All-Ireland finals, which is an incredible achievement.
It is, and you know, the first year season and second year season's only after starting, so I wouldn't rule out another trip to Tala, because they're great kids and they're good to coach. Yeah, it was a great achievement, I suppose. You know, we train hard, Kieran, like, you know, under 19s, under 16s, 2-hour training sessions twice a week. Gym is open to them whenever they need to go in for that as well. It wasn't, you know, it didn't come out of the blue, and I wasn't surprised because the intensity of training is fantastic. You know, and you know, they really deserve to be there. It's just unfortunate. Now, I'll be honest with you, if we played the Dublin team in the final, Moyle Park, 5 more times, they probably would still beat us. That was 5 times, but we put it up to them a bit. But they're an incredible team. The under 16 game, like when I spoke to you afterwards, I told you, like, I wasn't too disappointed after the game, but then when I watched it and saw the amount of shots we missed, I was pretty gutted, you know, because we missed a couple of dozen 3-point shots, and if you sink 3 of them, you win the All-Ireland, you know. So, and we wouldn't normally the guys that hit them, but you know, it's funny, we don't when you're practicing, when you're coaching basketball, shooting is kind of something a fella has to do in his own time, because you don't get a lot of time to spend on shooting. Most other schools, a lot of clubs around the country would have a shooting machine where a fella can go in and do an hour and might get 1,000 shots up. Whereas if you need someone to rebound for you, you might only get 100 shots up in the hour.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something we're going to have to look into getting, because the level of shooting in the A-League is going to be different class again. So we'll just have to keep up with them, And it's also, I suppose, for the kids themselves, there's a golden generation of Irish kids now spending, going to America, either to prep school or to D3 colleges, if they're good enough, D1, a lot of them. But I can see that happening down the line here in Bantry, where, you might have one or two heading to the States after they finish school here. Because we would always have maybe one or two really, really good players in each team that basketball would be their number one sport. And, there's kids in Cork doing it. I don't see why the kids back down this direction can't do it. Actually, Gabriel O'Mahony from Skibbereen, who plays in the Ballincollig under 18 team that I coach, he's looking to go to America next year. There's a Skibbereen connection with an agent out there, Kieran Quinn. He's got a nephew playing for Skib. So I think Gabriel's after getting in touch with him, and he's sending him some video footage, and hopefully he'll get he'll get something out of it at the end of the year.
Brilliant. That's great to hear. And you made a point, we were talking either before or after the All-Ireland schools finals, where your school in Bantry, it's almost as far from Tala as you can get for a school to travel. But for a rural school, for a school from West Cork, to hit those heights and get to an All-Ireland final, I think in a Skull Pub with Steve Luker and Rathmore, who've had great success in the last couple of years. Yeah. It's great to see these rural schools really putting up to the city boys, the kind of the strong heartland of basketball in Ireland.
It is and again, Rathmore have a guy called Jim Hughes, who spends his life coaching basketball down there, and that's he's addicted as well, and he puts a huge amount of time into it. They're traditionally Rathmore school, they're in A for quite a while, and that's down to the work that's been put in there. It's great to see. It's fantastic to see the rural schools. Where we are traditionally a GA community, and it's becoming a thing where people like to play basketball in the off season, the GA, which I have no issue with. Obviously, I prefer everyone to have basketball as their number one, but I have no issue with GA players coming to me and saying, "Can I play a bit of basketball?" We have a kid here now in school, Shane Renan, and he was Cork minor hurler last year. And I did try him in second year because he's a big lad, to see would he play a bit of basketball, but he just didn't at the time. And I actually came to him this year and I said, "Shane, give it a go. You'll never know." He played about 20 minutes in the All-Ireland final last week, and he was fantastic. And he's after catching the bug now. And, I keep saying to him, "Shane, this is something you can play till you're nearly 50. And I'd say it's something that he will do now every winter, even though he's a big GA man, and, it would be a second sport one. But at the same time, he hopefully play for the Bantry men's team at some stage, and, enjoy it and add to the team.
It's been a good few years for basketball in the wider Bantry community. Apart from the school, Bantry Basketball Club has had success in the last couple of years too. What do you put all that down to? The boom is probably the wrong word to use, Pat, but like this increased interest and success around Bantry basketball?
There's a great committee there now, headed by Niamh O'Neill. She's a coach of the women's team as well. And Claire Russell, who's a secretary here in the school, she's also secretary of the basketball club. There's a great connection between all the people in the club now. There's great communication. They're great to help us out with hall times and stuff like that. I only coach one team in Bantry this year, the under 12 boys, and the support I get from the committee is fantastic. So, and last year they put together they applied for the junior NBA, which was a massive thing. All the primary schools, local primary schools, would have got involved in it and came into Coláiste Pobail on a Friday in the half day, and got coaching from the coaches in Bantry Basketball Club, and there was a blitz put together, and they ended up going to Dublin to Tala as well for a day out, which was great. So there's a huge buzz in the community the whole time about basketball. I was briefly got the end of a game here last night a Division 2 men's game against Neptune where Bantry won. I think there's a Division 3 game now, men's game tonight, but the kids' games are fantastic here as well. And, we get a big crowd in downstairs here in the school. It's great. There's always a good buzz, and like pre-COVID, a basketball match was never called off before because, it's indoors and it's fairly reliable.
Because you made a great point earlier too about it was Shane Connor, was it, who's played basketball with the school now, and he was obviously Shane Moran, sorry, apologies. And he has the GA background with playing basketball. Like, the skills from basketball are so transferable to other sports. We have an interview with Gillian Coombs in this week's Southern Star. She played basketball with UL Huskies and Skibbereen Eagles, and she's now playing rugby with Ballincollig, and she played with Munster Women's and the Interpro. She's Gavin Coombs' older sister, but she was telling me just about those transferable skills that what she learned in basketball, she can take it to rugby. So just for listeners out there, like, what can you take from basketball? How beneficial is it for people from other sports just to try out basketball, and how much can it benefit their first choice sport in?
I would say that the number one thing is decision making. In the game of basketball, you probably have about 40 decisions to make in space of 24 seconds. You're going from offense to defense really, really quickly. So those transitions are really good for, spacing. Where am I going next? Am I running here? Am I cutting? Am I on the ball? There's, it's a massive sport for decision making. And I think that can help every sport. Movement. I mean, there's no such thing as a back or a forward. You're both. You're in offense, so you're in and you're in defense, you're in both. So you have to learn all the skills. You have to be a good defender. And defending in basketball is quite similar to GA. Obviously, you can't touch the person on the ball, but the clock is your friend. You're trying to stay ball side of them all the time until the clock runs out and force them into a difficult shot rather than letting them near the basket. So a lot of that stuff is, and the fitness, obviously. You're up and down, very short sprints. You might get a 5-second break when the ball goes dead. That's another thing. The lads from the GA would always say to me when they go back to GA season, they're always fitter than the guys that didn't play basketball because they've this extra little bit of movement going on in the basketball that you mightn't get in soccer and GA. I suppose when you think of soccer and GA, if you're a centre back, you're covering the same patch of ground for most of the game. If you're a cornerback in GA, you're even though the game has developed into cornerbacks moving up the field a bit more, you're still you could be stopped for a long time in the game. There's no stop in basketball. You're up and down all the time, and you're transitioning from being a forward, I suppose, to a back very quickly. I suppose if you put it in those terms.
Fill us in, so before we let you go, Pat, on what the rest of the school year looks in terms of basketball, what competitions the school will be competing in the next couple of weeks and months.
So we're done now with the seniors, the under 16s and the 19s. We kind of concentrated on the cup. If we kept the leg in with the league, we probably would be still playing nationally. But we didn't get to the league final in 16 or 19s. So that's done. But we've 8 teams on the go now at the moment. We've 4 first year teams, 2 boys, 2 girls, 4 second year teams, 2 boys, 2 girls, and they're all in the middle of their league games. We just played our first game there an hour ago against Christians, the first year boys, the highest grade team, and they had a very good win. So that's those 8 teams, and then our wheelchair team will have 2 tournaments, 2 competitions. I'm not sure the dates now, but they'll be coming up pretty soon, and a lot of the guys that played in the under 16 All-Ireland final will be playing in those as well.
Oh, brilliant. Congrats on the success so far this season and continued success on the hard courts of Bantry, Pat.
Thanks very much, Kieran. I appreciate it.
The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
Welcome back to the Star Sport podcast. And Kieran, we already touched on some of the features coming up in this week's Southern Star Sports section, but maybe gives us a bit of a cross section of what to look forward to.
Yeah, plenty in this week's Southern Star Sport. As usual, I've an interview with Gillian Coombs, the Skibbereen rugby player, the older sister to Munster and Ireland star Gavin Coombs. Gillian was on the Munster Interpro women's team that won that title a couple of weeks back. So I chatted to her about her story, how she got involved in rugby and her journey from Skibbereen to the Munster team. So it's a really interesting read with Gillian Coombs. Also, to say congratulations to the Ceylon under-12 schoolgirls soccer team who are through to the last 16 in the National Cup. So we have the full story of that. They're flying the West Cork schoolgirls flag on the national stage. Also, Joe McCarthy has spoken to the Drina Rangers women's soccer team who are flying high at the top of the West Cork League Sevens tournament at the moment. So we get an update on how things are going there. There's also Munster success for the St. Brogan's secondary school team in their intermediate camogie final last weekend. So we've an update from that. And also, Jack, as well, there's obviously a lot more in this week's Southern Star, but I know we're getting tight for time. Just want to touch on one remarkable achievement on Monday night. Cork City were in the Munster Senior Cup. They took on Castleview and they beat them 4-1. There was at one stage, four West Cork players on the pitch at the same time. Four young fellas from West Cork who were making names for themselves with Cork City at various levels. So with John O'Donovan from Ardfield, with Sam Bailey, who goes to secondary school in Clonakilty, Aaron Mannix from Dunmanway, and we had Lee Murray from Cora, who's in school in Skibbereen. So that's four West Cork young fellas on the pitch at the same time for the Cork City senior team, which is a remarkable achievement. And just to note too that Niamh Cotter from Bandon, she made her debut for the Cork City women's senior team last weekend as well. So it's just great to see that these young West Cork sports people are flying the West Cork flag on such a high stage. And it's great to see them go from strength to strength. And just as a teaser for our Star Sport podcast listeners, in the next couple of weeks, we will run our next generation feature in the Southern Star Sports section. So that's our annual feature where we profile and look at some of the top young sporting talents in West Cork across all sports. It was an 8-page feature last year. It'll be an 8-page feature again this year. So that'll be, I think it's 2 weeks' time, that'll be in the Southern Star. So that's well worth checking out.
Yeah, absolutely. Always one to look forward to. And we'll, of course, cover that feature on the podcast as well to just give you a taste of some of the exciting young sports talent that's coming through West Cork and who to expect coming up on the scene in the next number of years. All that's in this Thursday's Southern Star in shops across West Cork and further afield from Thursday morning. But as always, if you're on holidays or if you live abroad or you just can't get to the shops for any reason and want to still be able to enjoy the Southern Star on your computer, tablet or smartphone, you can do so for less than €2 per week when you subscribe online. Just go to www.subscribe.southernstar.ie and it's as easy as that. You can enjoy access to the Southern Star any day, anytime, from anywhere in the world. Thanks for listening to the Star Sport podcast, and thanks as well to our producer Dylan Mangan. If you enjoy these shows, please make sure to rate, review and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Slán Tamil.